Hi everyone, I am Marie Ralphs. I am not a HHT patient myself, but I have HHT affected family members and have experience of caring for my mum during her frequent heavy nosebleeds. The first HHT Ireland event I attended was the Patient Forum in 2018, at which Dara was looking for volunteer scientific officers for the organisation. As I have a background as a medical scientist, I decided to volunteer my skills, along with my sister, who is also a scientist. Since then, I have attended 2 HHT Europe meetings with the delegation from HHT Ireland, Oslo in 2018 and Madrid in 2019. Today, I will summarise for you the information we received regarding current research that is in progress in the field of HHT treatments and the organisations and resources available to patients with rare diseases and their patient organisations. The Madrid conference began with a visit to Dr. Luisa Maria Botella's laboratory and a meeting with the lab director and the Spanish Rare Disease Network at the Centre for Biological Research. This was followed, I have a photo here of the Centre for Biological Research. This was followed by a series of presentations over 2 days, which I'm going to summarise for you. The first one I have here was presented by Dr. Luisa Maria Botella, and she attended the 13th International HHT Scientific Conference, which took place in San Juan, Puerto Rico in June 2019. At the meeting in Madrid, she summarized the scientific presentations from that conference. Her presentation included the following topics: liver AVMs, their diagnosis, complications, and possible treatments; diagnosis and treatments of pulmonary AVMs; CT and MRI, and if treatment is indicated; systemic treatment for HHT; specific treatments for nose bleeding or epistaxis; local or topical treatments, such as tacrolimus ointment, etamsulate spray, and topical propranolol; systemic treatments such as tranexamic acid, Avastin, pazopanib; and surgical management such as pulsed dye lasers, sclerotherapy, and nasal splints. Drug repurposing strategies such as sirolimus and etamsulate. Sirolimus is used as an immunosuppressant, and etamsulate is used to prevent or reduce bleeding. Etamsulate acts in several ways to help stop bleeding. It increases the formation of proteins involved in blood clotting and decreases formation of prostacyclin I2, a type of fat that blocks clotting. Etamsulate also increases the activity of platelets, which are cell fragments in the blood that help the blood to clot. This medicine is expected to be used as a nasal spray, which would reduce severity and frequency of nosebleeds. Already in use to reduce and prevent excessive bleeding in other settings. Louisa mentioned the emerging issues in HHT, such as that in the 3 to 5% of cases of HHT which are caused by a mutation in the SMAD4 gene, it was suggested that these patients should be screened every 2 years for the presence of aneurysms or aortic dissection. Further research was reported into endoglin, the functions of this gene, which is responsible for HHT type 1, and the role of a molecule called TLR4 and its role with bacteria in the gut in the formation of cerebral cavernous malformations. And also she described new systems of research. Rosia Garcia Camanak gave a very enlightening presentation on the challenges involved in getting a new drug from the research and development stage to the market, the process of which is summarized on this slide. Rocio is the founder of Leon Research, a Spanish contract research organization, and is on the scientific board of DubCure, a biomedical investigation company. One of the aims of DubCure is to develop different therapies for diseases associated with angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is the term used to describe the formation of blood vessels. DubCure is currently working in the marketing authorization application filing process in order to get approval to treat patients with HHT. The clinical investigation stage represents the first big challenge for two main reasons. A rare disease represents by definition a low number of patients included in the studies, and the financing of these investigations is not interesting for sponsors as it will not represent an interesting return of their investment. An orphan drug is a pharmaceutical agent developed to treat medical conditions which, because they are so rare, would not be profitable to produce without government assistance. In 2018, Dr. Louisa made possible to get this designation for etamsulate as a new orphan drug to treat HHT. A big thank you is due to the Spanish National Research Council, who signed the orphan designation transfer for Dobecure as the new sponsor in 2019. Rocio then briefly outlined the manufacturing process, marketing authorization application process, financial considerations and follow-up. And she then highlighted the number of individuals and organizations involved in this process for etamsulate. Notably Dr. Luisa Maria Botella, who I've already mentioned. Dr. Sol Marcos presented information on HHT treatments used in Spain. Firstly, she described the anatomy of the blood supply to the nose, and then she explained sclerotherapy, a treatment currently used for varicose veins to shrink the affected blood vessels by injecting them with a drug called ethoxyskerol. The area is first anesthetized, and the ethoxyskerol 1% is injected slowly directly into the abnormal blood vessels, in small quantities and in stages. They reapply the topical anesthesia after each injection, and only one side of the septum is treated at a time. As with any medical procedure, there are some possible complications. Studies have shown the Epistaxis severity score to be significantly reduced following this procedure. The Apostasis severity score is a tool used to evaluate the current severity of HHT patient nosebleeds, typically in the last 3 months, and can help healthcare providers evaluate how a patient is responding to treatment. Dr. Marcos then discussed the findings of studies describing the efficacy of tacrolimus and provided details of 2 scientific papers listed on this slide. She then gave practical examples of where treatment with tacrolimus has been used. For example, a male in his 60s, and he had HHT type 1. He had septal perforation, severe anemia, and was pre a hip replacement surgery. Another one was a male in his 20s who had a new mutation of HHT and was suffering from pharyngeal bleeding. And there was another one, a female in her 40s who had septal perforation. Claudia, our previous speaker today, is the Managing Director of HHT Europe. On the first day of the conference in Madrid, she gave a presentation on international guidelines, update on Vasern, and results of HHT working group. There was 3 topics covered in the one presentation. Claudia was on the expert panel who produced the updated international guidelines. This panel included expert physicians in HHT from 15 countries, guideline methodologists, healthcare workers, healthcare administrators, patient advocacy representatives, and persons with HHT. At the time of the Madrid meeting, the second international guidelines were still in production, and Claudia informed the meeting of the planned roadmap to achieve publication. The second international guidelines for the diagnosis and management of hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia was published in the Annals of Internal Medicine on September the 8th, 2020. The website to view the HHT guidelines is simply hhtguidelines.org. They can be easily explored by topic of interest, such as epistaxis, anemia, liver AVMs, etc. And I would encourage anyone who is interested in HHT to have a look at this and direct your healthcare professionals to it. The link to HHT International Guidelines is also available from the HHT website under the What is HHT tab. European reference networks are EU networks created to promote better practices and better outcomes for rare diseases. They favour cross-border care by pooling existing highly specialised healthcare providers and centres of excellence across the EU and use relevant communication and e-health tools to make expertise travel rather than the patients. VASERN stands for the European Reference Network on Rare Multisystemic Vascular Diseases, and their desired outcomes or goals are listed on this slide. ERNs have a parallel group called the EPAG, or the European Patient Advocacy Group, with one delegate from each organisation that is interested in participating. This group sends input to and collects questions from the clinician HHT working group in VASERN. At the time of the Madrid meeting, the following people listed here were members of the HHT EPAG, which, as you can see there, includes Claudia. One EPAG is elected by all the others and sits on the HHT working group with the clinicians and liaises with the other EPAGs. This person at the moment is Claudia. On this slide, I have included a screenshot of the HHT working group on the VASERN website, and also listed the HHT working group accomplishments so far. There are many different documents that they have prepared, and they're available on the VASERN website. The one there that I was unfamiliar with is called Pills of Knowledge. And just to let you know, they are defined as short single video lessons of approximately 3 to 5 minutes long, in which an expert talks about a specific topic that has been selected and validated by the Rare Disease Working Group. If you'd like any further information, you can look up the vasern.eu website, or you can follow and share using Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. The ERN Board of Member States recommendations and the EURORDIS recommendations essentially state that the integration of the ERNs into the healthcare systems of member states is a bare necessity. If anyone is interested in finding out more about the ERNs or VASERN, there's a website here that I have got for you, and it's well worth having a look at. Karen from HHT Switzerland and Ralph from HHT Germany provided an update on the progress with the formation of the HHT CAB. A CAB is a group of patients who offer their expertise to sponsors of clinical research or policymakers. They began in the 1990s for conditions such as HIV, hepatitis, and breast cancer. The HHT CAB was set up with help and guidance from EURORDIS. EURORDIS is a non-profit alliance of rare disease patient organizations from 72 countries. The HHT CAB was established in March 2019. There are 12 members from France, Italy, Spain, Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, Norway, Ireland, and the Netherlands. EURORDIS have organized study programs, and regular meetings have taken place since they were established in 2019. The Irish representative on the HHT CAB is Petronella McLaughlin. The objectives of the CAB are to make existing and planned clinical trials more efficient, resulting in better outcomes and faster results. To put whoever has a product of interest in a better position to serve us, increasing the return on investment, and input from the CAB helps avoid fragmented research repetitions. To identify products the CAB believe would be beneficial, approach companies and discuss how we could help each other. Orphanet is a European website established in 1997 in France by INSERM. They provide information on rare diseases. It became a European endeavour in 2000. And Dara presented a talk on the Orphanet HHT emergency guidelines. This is an extremely valuable paper for medics in emergency situations, developed in French by Sophie Dupuis-Guiraud and her team. My apologies, I've gone too fast there. It covers all emergency protocols for HHT patients and is intended to guide healthcare professionals in emergency situations. It was translated first by the Spanish HHT medical team, second in Italy by HHT Onlus, and currently translations are in progress in Sweden, Ireland, and the Netherlands. Dara outlined the steps taken by HHT Onlus when they translated the emergency guidelines. And she informs me that the translation into English by HHT Ireland is still a work in progress. While the translation has been completed by volunteers and kindly verified by Dr. Adrian, we must now wait for assistance from Orphanet Ireland. Anne Gustil from Amro, France, described the journey of a patient as they navigate the experience of coming to terms with the diagnosis of HHT. Beginning with the initial difficulties of getting a diagnosis, especially as HHT is such a rare disease. When diagnosed, the feelings of not understanding the illness or how to manage it. Also the feelings of dealing with the healthcare systems and difficulties of interacting with healthcare professionals who are unfamiliar with this rare disease. Making adjustments to one's life, possibly unable to continue working or dealing with the stigma of an invisible illness. Then begin to consider, what do other people do to manage this illness? Develop a support network by joining a patient group. Learn from them and discover useful resources, for example, trustworthy internet sites for information, etc. All these stages are to be expected when someone is going through this very stressful process. But by reaching out to others, particularly others who can empathize, you can gain knowledge and skills to help maintain as healthy a life as possible. In a session titled Communicating, Claudia addressed the meeting regarding the elements that European patient organizations should consider when developing their communication strategies, and her suggestions are listed on this slide. And just to quote Claudia's final slide, it was teamwork makes the dream work. Now, here's a photograph to finish up with of the Irish delegation at the end of the Madrid conference. On a personal note, from that first patient forum I attended in May 2018, when I made a spur-of-the-moment decision to become involved with HHT Ireland. I've been lucky enough to attend 2 European conferences. I took part in the 2019 Tour de Burin and the 2020 Move-a-thon. I hosted a coffee morning to help raise awareness and met so many wonderful people who are all working very hard on behalf of HHT patients. Our visit to the Spanish Centre for Biological Research was a particular highlight for me as a scientist. And I was lucky enough to meet the person who discovered the etamsulate molecule, and that particularly stands out for me. While he wasn't Neil Armstrong, for me he was nearly as close. I'd like to thank Dara and the HHT Ireland team for giving me these opportunities. And I'd encourage anyone to consider volunteering and becoming actively involved with your patient organisation, HHT Ireland. If anyone would like to put forward suggestions of what you would like from your scientific officer, please don't hesitate to let me know. Also, if anyone would like more information on any of the items I've presented, I will do my best to get them for you. And thank you very much.